So hello and welcome. Today we are going to work on an initial capital letter J. J is great for all sorts of names. Jean, Jen, Jeremy, John, Jonathan, Joseph. Lots and lots of names begin with the letter J. And I think we will do J for my sister Jennifer. So you can use whatever colors you want, whatever shapes or flourishes you want. This is just going to give you the starting point idea for how to work on these kinds of projects and how to create the shape. Alright, so I recommend having watercolor paper, pencil, waterproof pen, and then watercolor paints, and an eraser to go with your pencil. Alright, so we're going to start with drawing the letter J. So I like to do J's with curves. Some of the other shapes tend to be more straight lines, but J's just seems very curvy to me. So we're going to give the initial top part of it a swoosh. I'm going to put a curl in it. That. Alright, for some reason I am in a very swooshy mood with this J, and that's alright, just go with your instincts. Not sure about this front one though, that doesn't really seem to go off the shapes that I was developing. Alright, so we got this round shape over here. There we go. That's more of what I was thinking. I'm not sure about this back end. What would I rather have? There we go. For whatever reason, that is the shape I am thinking of for a J. What should I put in here? Well, as we've said, I am in a flower mood. So let's put some little windowy shapes into here. Flowy shape into here. Alright. I'll have some sort of a plant start here. Leaves. Some leaves leaves on here. Alright, I think I'm going to make the actual flower heads be loose and watercolory, so I won't ink those in necessarily, but we'll have a butterfly sitting on this little springboard. Alright, I think that gives us a lot of different shapes to work with to start with. And then this is a little further down to reach the ground. Alright, so do your drawing and testing out of ideas in pencil to start with until you're sure everything is where you want it, and then switch over to the pen. And so with the pen, the shapes now go down fairly permanently. So if you have any further adjustments you want to make, I suggest making those back in pencil. Be careful when you are drawing that you do not run your hand along over the things that you have already touched. And some of these inside shapes. Little windows. Flower. And the butterfly. Alrighty. So I think we've got the basics of the letter J drawn out. We'll give that a moment to dry. Ink does not dry instantaneously, so always give it a breath to make sure that it has a chance to dry. So now that we've done the pencil sketch and then the ink tracing, we are ready for the painting. And now comes the question of the colors to use. So we're going to be using green for the leaves. Let's see, I've already done something in blue and purple and brown. We could do red. Alright, so if we do red, I don't want to do red for the flowers too. Alright, so we'll think of a different color for the flowers. But for now, let's focus on red. Now I've got a bunch of reds here. Before I start doing this, take a look at our color chart and see which of these reds we want to use for our letter. And I think I will go with Crimson. Crimson Red Lake. Choose number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across. So one here with the crack across its center. Keep trying to fill that in. I had a little thing over here somewhere of water. Let's see where I put it. Oh, there it is. Let's see if maybe I fill that in with water and let it fully hydrate, if I can get that crack to fill in. It's interesting how different colors dry. Some of them dry into a solid lump, and then other ones dry into lots of little crumbly bits. Goes to show that every color is different from every other color. And also I've got a couple different brands in here. So different brands of paint have different bases and behave differently. Alright, we'll see if that crack fills in and this dries back out again. Or if it just has a crack in it again. Alright, so we're working with crimson for the color. For our letter J. In this case, J is for Jennifer, my sister. Your J can be for whoever you want it to be. You're a Jeremy, or a Jonathan, or a Jacqueline, Jacob, Jehoshaphat, Josel, all sorts of great J names out there. It's amazing how much a name choice affects a person. And I know several people who have chosen their own names as they got older because they wanted a name that resonated strongly with them personally. It's interesting to think that in many cases a name is chosen by parents before they even really meet the child and know what their personality is going to be like or anything else like that. And then the child is affected by hearing that name all the time and thinking of the meaning behind the name and other famous people who have the name. And there could be a name that has wonderful connotations for the first half of your life, and then someone famous does something completely awful, and now all sorts of people are having a different impression of that name. We have to think of the way the name Karen has been treated recently. And there are all sorts of people who are wonderful people who are named Karen, and now that name has some less than happy connotations to it, and people are just victims of how society is changing the way that it processes words. I imagine that was true to the beginning of the time. If there was a Prince John, and if lots of people felt he was a corrupt prince, then probably the name John in general became a name that wasn't a great name to have at the time period. So we've always had that kind of a challenge. would be a good reason to use nicknames and other names. But we are working on the letter J. Watercolor is all about layers and creating layers of color. And watercolor dries lighter than it goes on. So think in terms of layers when you're painting. You don't need to necessarily make it the final darkness on your first pass. You can put on a first pass, let it dry, see what you think, add on a second layer, let it dry, and that way you get to the exact shade that you want. Because it's generally hard to make things lighter, because the light of a watercolor painting comes from the light of the room going through the pigment, bouncing off of the white of the paper, and then coming back out to the eye. So you can add on more pigment, which will make things look darker, but it's a little more challenging to take away pigment, and especially for colors like red. Red tends to stain, so where you could scrub out some other colors and lift them off the paper, there are some colors like red which are much more challenging to do that sort of thing too. I have to say, I'm really liking this color. This color is just such a pretty, creamy kind of color. I have to be careful not to get my hand into the existing wet red, because if I accidentally smeared this red somewhere, that would be really hard to fix. Alrighty. Okey-doke. That up in there. Alright, that red is such a bright color that I don't think I want to make anything else red, because they all just compete with each other for attention. Alright, so I'll just put some little touch-ups in area that it came out a little light to get it to all be about the same level of darkness. Alright, I think that will do. Alright, next up I will work on the green of the petals, because you generally don't want to work on anything near an area that's wet, because wet areas can merge and blend into each other, which makes the colors muddy. It's better to work on things that are completely separate, like these little flower leaves. Alright, so I sort of have to make a decision on what color I want the flower petals to be. So I've got red on here, I'll have green, The accent color could be gold. I like to use red and gold. But I don't know that I want to have gold flowers because the petals won't be easy to differentiate. I'm not sure. I suppose I could have gold flowers. They will be sort of subtle, but subtle will be okay. Alright, so get some gold. Try to darken them up a bit so that they're visible against the white. Alright, those might end up being visible. Alright, we'll make the middle of the butterfly same kind of color. Alright, that red just went down. But it was still wet, so it's fairly dangerous to put gold into these hole areas. And also, I tend not to like to have a light color in the holes. So what if we made the holes a darker color and then these two flourishes the gold? It's still going to be risky because it's still fairly wet in there. So I just have to be careful. So I want to keep that gold a nice bright gold. Yep, so far so good. I'm afraid to go deeper into there right now. So at least I got those two done. See if I can get the wings done. Alright, I think I'm going to want to darken the butterfly's body, so I'll deal with that later. Let's think. I can make it a darker green color. That could work. But I think I actually want a little gold in it for sparkle. So let's see if I pull up some of this darker green. Rinse that off. A little bit of gold to get the sparkle in there. Alright, and try to do this without getting it merged too much into the red. Alright, so far so good. If you let these layers dry completely, it's not as much as a nervous challenge. The thing is that we're trying to work quickly in this video so that you're not sitting around watching things dry. Alright, so far so good. around the leaf. Alright, so now we have it being darker. Now the problem is that that green is a bit saturated. And I don't want it to be quite that obvious against the red of the J. I want the red of the J to be the primary focus, not these spots. So while they are green, they're a bit too exciting of a color of green. So what I'm going to do is rinse my brush out. I'm going to get a little bit of red mixed with this darker black in here. Red is the opposite of green. And if I drop a little red in here, which is sort of ironic because it's what I was trying to avoid before. I was trying to avoid the red mixing in, but now I'm deliberately adding a little red in there. And my purpose is to dull the color down a little bit, so it's not quite so in-your-face green. So that the red J remains the center of attention. There we go. That is better. So now those giant green spots aren't jumping out at you. And I suppose I could do the same. A little bit of dab into the center of the butterfly. A bit more of a defined center. Alright, so I like the butterfly look better. I like the spots look better. And I like the bright gold. Although I think I'll put a little bit of a swirl down the center of there, just to give it a little something. Alright, so now for these gold petals, I want them to have a little more interest. We got this gold. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of red, so that the second layer of petals that I put in are a little different. Maybe a little bit of under petal. Alright. So they look like a multi-dimensional flower, not just sort of like a splotch. Alright, so now we've got golden flowers, we've got a butterfly, we've got the flowers interweaving through the letter J, and I think I would like to add some little golden spots to it, because that's what I like to add to my shapes. Alright, so we'll get some gold in here. Start up here. I think this is still wet, so this is taking a risk. But that seems to have worked. It might be safe to finish up the little gold in here a little bit. And a little gold in here. Alrighty. Pen. So there we have it. We have a letter J done with golden flowers and a golden butterfly. Again, you can do your letter J with whatever color combination strikes your fancy and what kind of shapes and creatures you'd like to add to it. So let me know if you have any questions at all. I'm happy to answer questions or offer suggestions. And have a wonderful afternoon.